Hey artist friends, today I am creating with one of my new stencils. I am so excited to share the stencil collection with you. If you haven't seen all of the videos, there are several of them on my YouTube channel, so check them out and I will link them below as well. So I'm starting off with an art journal here that I gessoed the pages, and now I'm covering up both pages with a piece of ledger paper. I'm using matte medium very generously to secure these pages to my art journal in the front and the back, and then I'm going to trim off the edges of the pages where they kind of hang over a little bit. And as you see, I didn't exactly get that ledger paper on the top, and I'll fix that in just a little bit. Normally, I really like to have those ledger numbers where they're supposed to be. You'll see that 8 is where it's supposed to be on that left, but the 26 is on the inside. But if I had put it on the outside, I wouldn't have gotten as much writing on that page. So I kind of defied the way a ledger normally looks and put it the wrong way on the page. In the end, it doesn't bother me, but I kind of had to get over it for a little bit. Now I'm adding some gesso to these pages. The pages are really creamy brown and there's not much of a light spot, I guess, on the pages. So in order to bring in that lightness to the pages and kind of push back the old just a little bit, I'm adding a little bit of gesso. If you're new to my channel and new to my process, I love the way gesso looks on old book pages, old ledger pages, especially when you splatter it and it gets really kind of light, it gets kind of chalky. So oftentimes it's one of my first couple layers that I put down on an art journal, especially when I'm using old book pages. I use the gesso at full strength and also watered down a little bit to get a couple tones of it on my page. Next, I'm going to grab a very important ingredient to this journal page, some dirty paint water. So this paint water is dirty from the page that I created before it, and it has this really luscious, pretty lavender color that I wanted to add to my pages. So I'm using just some of that dirty paint water and spreading it around the pages. I'm going to dry it a little bit and continue to add a little bit more, dripping it so it comes in a couple different intensities as well, just like I did with that gesso previously. When I dry my pages with a hairdryer, I always use the cool setting so that number one, it doesn't burn my hand, but also it doesn't burn or warp my journal pages. And then a lot of times I actually use my paintbrush to kind of pull that puddled water, that puddled dirty water in this case, or the paint around on the page to allow it to dry faster, but also allow myself to kind of place it where I want it. Now I'm grabbing one of my stencils, the triangle leaf reflection stencil. Did you hear that? One of my stencils. I am so excited about this, if you can't tell. So I kind of wanted these triangle leaves shadowed a little bit in the background. I didn't want them at full intensity, at least that's what I'm thinking right now. I go in a completely different direction. I'm using this sepia India ink. I thought it would be the perfect color to kind of add just like a dirty kind of reflection on the pages. I've been using sepia a lot to add aging to my pages, and I thought it would work on these, and I pull it up, it did not look the greatest. And I am stressing because here I am debuting my stencils to you, and I want these journal pages to look really good, right? And I'm like, oh man, I loved how the background looked with the ledger sheet and my dirty paint water and the gesso, and I didn't want to have to redo that. So here I am trying to make it work. I'm stenciling again on the other side with this same stencil and the same process to see if I can didn't work again, and I am truly disappointed, but I'm going to try to fix it here. I try to swish it around, add some dirty paint water. I'm trying to wipe it off because it's not happening. Oh, whatever. If you can't tell, I have a little bit of cold in my voice, so I apologize if it sounds a little bit different than normal. However, I wanted to get these voiceovers done despite my cold, so here I am anyway. I grabbed some of this cleaning paste that I often use on my desk when I get paint places, and once in a while I do use it in my journals to get paint off in places that I don't want it, and I'm scrubbing as hard as I can to try to remove that first layer of stencil. I did the best I could. There's still a little bit of shadow behind, but in the end, this is going to work to my advantage, surprisingly enough. At this point, I need to just redo that stencil completely, so I grabbed the Titan Violet Pale. It is springtime here in Texas. I am waiting with anticipation for flowers to bloom, and I am just in this springy color mood. I love that purple dirty paint water that I put in my background, so I'm going to lean into that. And instead of like gessoing over these or using gesso, I thought I would add the Titan Violet Pale, that can be a tongue twister, that adds just a little bit of hint of purple into that pale to kind of start bringing this page into a new direction. In my head, I know at this point kind of what I want to do, so I'm starting that process. I'm going to layer that, I'm just going to call it Violet Pale or Violet, the light violet, on both my pages with that same, a clean applicator of that same process, adding it to the left, and now I'm going to add it on the right, covering up that sepia ink that I put down that I didn't like, but it actually kind of looks cool. I like how it ended up shadowing and making this paint look a little bit more grungy and not so like pastel, which normally isn't my ballpark. I don't normally use a lot of pastel in my artwork, so adding that mistake layer in the background really pushed this into a really cool direction that I didn't plan. I had missed getting paint in a couple of those leaves on the left, so I just added that stencil back down and re-stenciled them. And now I'm going to begin the process of kind of making these not look so stenciled. After I stencil, a lot of times I will pick up some watered down version of the same paint, put it on top, kind of remove some of the stenciled part if it's not too dry yet, add it in places. I like it to look grungy. I like it to look a little bit more like watercolored and not so stenciled, a little bit more free and not so like tight in that stencil shape. And so adding that watered down Titan Violet Pale on top of it did that process. And now I'm wanting to continue the stencil so that I get kind of a frame or a circle shape of these leaves. So I picked up 4 of them that kind of made the arc on the top, and I'm going to stencil it on all 4 pages same way, just the 4 little leaves on top and then their stems as well. Now it's not bothering me that I'm getting extra stems because it's making it look like there's layers of the leaves there, which is really cool and I like that a lot. I did think about using that sepia ink behind this next layer that I did, but I didn't, and it's not bothering me that I didn't do that. I'm going to kind of solve that in a little bit by adding some more grungy to those leaf shapes, but it doesn't bother me that I don't have that sepia behind them. Now I grabbed my general sketch and wash. It is a water-soluble graphite pencil, and I'm just outlining those leaf shapes with it very loosely. I'm also really loosely tracing the stems, and then I'm going to activate it with water. Because it's water-soluble, it's going to kind of allow it to mix and mingle with that violet color, make them a little bit more grungy, add a little bit of grunge to those ones that don't have the sepia behind it, and it just adds a little bit more of like intentional interest to those leaf shapes. It's also one of my favorite things that I like to do when I stencil on pages is to sketch around them a little bit with some kind of water-soluble pencil. And I'm just adding a little bit of flick of that paint there on it as well to add just some more softness to the pages. And this is the picture that I've chosen to use on these pages and why I kind of wanted to create like a frame. I knew this was the picture I was using, and the flowers behind the lady in the photo kind of looked like the leaf shapes that I put on the pages, and so I thought I'd create a frame around her with them. And so now I want to add some more color to this page. I'm going to use the same violet color that I was already on the pages in another like darker version, just water it down a little bit and paint on top of these leaf shapes. This process is just going to be kind of like a pull and tug and pull, however you say that. I'm going to put some of the paint down, allow it to kind of mingle on the page, kind of go where it wants to. When it gets a little bit darker than I want it to, I'm going to use a baby wipe and kind of pull some of it away. And then I'm going to continue to layer it. I want these leaves to look like little flowers, and I want them, at first I thought I'd kind of make it like ombre looking and start kind of dark to light, but I didn't want it to look so purposeful. I didn't want it to look planned. I really wanted it to look random. So I'm going to randomly pull some of that paint away, add it back, pull it back, and just kind of get these leaves look like little spring flower buds on my page. I am using both of those purples to the right. One's a fluorescent violet and one's a, I don't know, red violet. I showed them to you a minute ago, but they're not really looking much different on the page, so I end up using more of that dark color than the fluorescent on there. They kind of look the same when watered down, and I'm going to continue that same process on the right side, adding the paint, pulling it away, adding more, allowing it to mingle, and I really want them to look like really dainty, perfect spring little watercolor flowers. Now that I have those flowers set, I really also want to add some color to their stems. So I grabbed this Titan Green Pale, which is blurry, you cannot see it, but it's the Golden So Flat Titan Green Pale. And I'm going to use that same process that I just used with the violet. I'm watering some of it down so it's really thin, kind of watercolory looking. I'm going to put it down, pull it back, put it down. I do a lot more putting down than pulling back on this one, just really loose little lines on the page to kind of bring some color to those stems. I don't want them stark green. I don't want them to be so obvious on the page, but I want to just add a hint to them that they're stems. I allowed that green to dry just a little bit and noticed I forgot it in a few spots. I wanted to add it a little bit of darker towards the down point on that triangle to make it look more like they're joined as stems. So I added just a little bit more, and now my flowers and my stems are set and it's time to work on the next step. So in the process of adding that purple to my flowers and the stems as well, I kind of lost some of the lines around them. So I'm just adding a few little marks back in. This is bringing that shadow back to the leaf shape, a little bit of that sketchiness to it, and just defining them a little bit more. I'm using that same general sketch and wash, except this time I'm not going to activate it. It's already really activated. I just want some of those original line marks back in on my page. So you already know I had my subject already planned for this page, so I'm putting this photo down and trying to decide where to go next. I feel like I need to layer her with something, so I grabbed a piece of light blue, really small ledger notebook paper that has some really cool rusting on it, and it's not really rusting, it's like old marks or whatever it is, and then also some of this rust dyed lace that an art friend sent me, and I'm going to layer her down with that paper and with some of that lace as well. So now I'm going to cheat and do some stitching. I am not the best, most even stitcher, but these holes provided the perfect opportunity to add just a little bit more fabric or texture, I guess would be the right term, to this page. And I'm just going to use these holes to stitch up and down. I'm going to stitch all the way up using the holes and then the reverse way all the way down, so it looks like a really neat stitch and adds just a little bit more pop of color and more texture to my journal page. I love how this is coming together. The points or triangle shapes of that lace on the right is matching my triangle leaves, which is matching the photo, and it's all really coming together. I knew that I wanted to put a saying or a quote or something on that left side, maybe something about flowers, and I was like googling some flower searching, and it was just overwhelming me. So I decided to pull up those Dina Wakley ledger sheets and see if I could just cut something out of them, and I found a couple quotes that I really liked and made my own quote from them. I like to kind of tell a story with the photos on my pages, but lots of times the quotes are just not exactly what the story that I wanted to tell, and so I created my own little story here with just pieces of quotes from one of those journal pages, put it down with matte medium front and the back. Then I picked up the photo to put onto my page, and I always look to make sure there isn't like a good story or something fun on the back, and I wanted to capture the back of that photo there of the lady. I think it said she was 71, if that's correct, before I put it down on the page. Now that's kind of recorded in history here in my channel, and I'm sticking it to the small blue notebook ledger sheet really well with matte medium. And then I'm also going to secure it with matte medium on the front. Now, normally I don't completely cover my photos with matte medium, but this older black and white photo was a little bit more glossy, and I don't really love the glossy look, especially on this page because it's a little softer, a little bit more grungy. And so if you didn't know, matte medium is also a matting agent, which means it's going to reduce the shine on something. So if you have a photo that you don't like that's glossy, just put a really nice layer of matte medium over it. Oftentimes I'll do my brush strokes horizontal and then I'll do them vertical, and it kind of fills it in so you don't have a lot of brush stroke. And now that the photo and that paper are dry, I'm going to add that lace to the back with some of that heavy gloss by Dina Wakley, and then I'm also going to secure it to the page. And now that she's stuck down on my page, I'm really feeling like I want to pull some of that rust color into the pages, but not like in your face. I just want a hint of it. So in order to kind of test out some colors, I am adding some matte medium on the top of a ledger, part of that ledger that I cut off earlier. I'm going to let it dry, and then I grab some of these watercolors. They are made of soil. It's called The Art of Soil, and I thought they would be perfect because they're a little bit more chalky of a watercolor, which kind of adds to the chalky nature of these journal pages that are happening. And playing with these colors here, trying to make them look a little rusty on this ledger sheet so that I can test them out and then actually use them on my journal page. I will have the links to all of the supplies below, as well as those watercolors, not sponsored by them at all, but in case you're looking for them, they're really cool. And now I'm adding some of that sepia ink that I used earlier, but now I'm going to use it to age my page. I've really enjoyed adding that sepia ink like around old photographs because it makes them look like they've been on the page a lot longer, so they're not just sitting there, but it's kind of adding some of that grungy, aged, worn look to my page around that photo. I'm lifting up that lace. I'm going to anchor it down with some paint so that it doesn't go into the wet sepia ink, and now just continue that aging process. So because I'm adding this, that's how it's not bothering me that it's not behind those other triangle leaves that I added in the end, because I'm kind of adding it now at the on the edges of them as well. So one reason that I made sure that those words were secured really well on my journal page with the matte medium on the front and the back was also to seal that paper, because I knew I was going to add a bunch of the sepia ink around it, so they also looked like they were worn and had been on the page a while. You can see on the glorious mess over there to the right where I didn't get it sealed as well with matte medium, that sepia ink really soaked into it. It doesn't bother me that it happened in a couple places, but I didn't want it to happen in all of the words. That's why I made sure I got as much matte medium as I could possibly get on them, even though I missed a couple spots. Now I'm adding the few little words I chose to put on top of the photo on her as well. I'm going to continue to age the words on the left, stick down the words on the right, and I will age them as well. So I'm going to add some of that touch of that rusting that I was wanting to add on my pages. I'm mixing colors here on the palette. I'm testing them out again one more time on that piece of ledger sheet. And I'm going to use that same process that I used earlier when I used the violet on those leaf shapes. I'm going to put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up, just to get hints of it on my page. I don't want a ton. I don't want it to look like I purposefully did it. I want it just to add to the aging of the page and also bring that rust color around the pages. Now that I have that rusting on the pages, my final steps are going to be to add some more of that aging color with that sepia ink around the words on the photo, and then add just a little bit more on the words on the left. I like to start aging or adding just little details as light-handed as I can, and you can always make it darker as you need to, but if you get too much on it, it's really hard to take it away. So those words just weren't popping enough, so I'm adding just a little bit more sepia around the edges of them. And then my very last step is just to add a little bit of color on top of this photo so it blends in a little bit better with my pages. Thank you so much for watching this first journal page that I created with my triangle leaf reflection stencil. I look forward to using this so much more in my artwork. I already have so many ideas, and I hope that this has sparked some ideas in you as well to grab this stencil from StencilGirl. Speaking of, thank you so much to StencilGirl Products for allowing me to begin designing stencils for you. I am so excited for this new opportunity and cannot wait to share more stencils in the future. All of the stencils, supplies, and the additional playlist of my new stencils is linked below in the description box. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you grab some of these stencils and create today, or in a few days when they come to you in the mail. Have a wonderful day.